to another edition of the Stogie Review video review. I am Walt, and I am back with another cigar review of the week. And just like I mentioned last week, I was able to pull off that one special cigar. So to unveil that for you, actually I've got two. One is not the one I'm smoking, and one is, but they're for comparison purposes. The one I will be smoking today is the Oliva Serie Maduro Especial. And we'll see if I can get you the Maduro part of the band in the camera without too much glare. Make it focus. There you go. Maybe that helps. Okay, so we got one Maduro and we got one Liga Especial. And the reason to show you both is they're a little bit different from one another. As you can see, one's a little bit longer, and you really won't be able to tell that one is 1/32 smaller than the other. The Maduro is a 52 by 6.5, and the original Torpedo is a 54 by 6. So there's a little bit of a dimension change. And according to Jose Oliva, as per an interview he did with Cigar Insider, the reason for the change was to dial the cigar back a little bit. I guess it was a little too over the top initially, and by dialing down the size, they were able to back off the strength just a little bit and get the cigar into a zone that they were shooting for. But anyway, the particulars on the cigar: this is the Serie Maduro Especial. It's a torpedo size. It is the one and only size the cigar is going to be available in. As I mentioned earlier, it's a 52 by 6.5. It's got a Connecticut broadleaf Maduro wrapper, Nicaraguan binder, filler, and it's also made in Nicaragua. Now, the price point on these is going to be $8 MSRP, and they're going to come packaged in boxes of 10. And you can expect to see these cigars very soon, actually. As on October 15th, the first wave of shipments will leave Miami, Florida, from the Oliva headquarters, and they're going to start being distributed to cigar shops or retailers. Now, from what I've read on various forums, these cigars are going to be available. Essentially, every cigar shop is going to get 2 boxes. Some may end up with more than 2 boxes, but expect your local tobacconist to get 2 boxes if he's a regular. So, if he carries Oliva, chances are he's going to be getting V Maduros. And there was a little bit of people were a little concerned about this, and I really wasn't concerned. I'm looking at it as they're sort of leveling the playing field. You should be able to get these anywhere, and the concern was that cigars are going to be scarce. The V's hard enough to get. How are we going to get the V Maduros? All these places are only getting 2 boxes. The cigar shop owners are going to keep them for themselves, and on and on. But personally, I really think it levels the playing field by allocating cigars to all these various shops, and I think it's going to be a little easier to get a hold of than you think. Now, there's going to be people that run out and purchase the box of 10, but I think you've got a better shot if you've got 3 cigar shops in your area and all 3 of them are going to be getting boxes. You have a better shot than that one shop that's sort of bigger getting maybe 5 boxes. I just think they're going to burn through them. But at any rate, it's about time to get smoking the cigar. Anything else of interest that I should mention to you while I get started? Okay, they're looking at roughly 5,000 boxes. They will also be available in the United Kingdom, Holland, and Switzerland. And I'm pretty much reading right from Cigar Insider at this point. So, alright, looks like that's all the information that I'm finding of useful to me anyway. So let's move along with the cigar and let's start talking about it. First and foremost, it's broadleaf Maduro. It's looks like a broadleaf Maduro. It's got a little bit of a rough texture to it, just a little bit. I've got one medium-sized vein middle of the cigar. It doesn't look bad. Adds a little bit of a lumpy feel to it. Just sort of pinching in a little bit. Feels consistent. No soft spots, feels good, head to foot. It's doesn't smell like much, but let's get started. To be honest with you, I'm getting a little bored just looking at the cigar, and I'm sure you are too. So this is my second V Maduro. I had one last night, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but I had a very heavy dinner, and the cigar really satisfied. So I'm looking forward to getting into the cigar. And it's actually a little late on Thursday night, so if this video is up a little later than usual, you probably won't notice because I'm mentioning it now, but it's because I'm doing this review a little bit later than I would prefer. But I wanted to make sure that I got to smoke the cigar in the evening, because everything I've read on the cigar so far has been that it is a very full-bodied cigar, and you shouldn't smoke it earlier on in the day. It should be your nightcap, more or less. So I'm taking their advice. Lots and lots of spice through the nose in the beginning. Very spicy, very crisp, but very, very spicy. Starts off around full-bodied. Well, if you take it through the sinuses, it's very full-bodied, very, very spicy, very smooth. A little pepper on the tongue. But nice to start, very powerful through the nose. But at any rate, that is the beginning part of the video, so sit tight. I'll be back. We'll dive into the first third. You can take a look at a few pictures of the V Maduro. And I'll be back, and, well, we'll get this thing underway.
Close the curtain, let the drapes fall, morning will forget about the worried in the basement, refuge for sunsets. Take a bow, maybe turn around, there's a desperate wanting.
Well, welcome back, and as you can see, I'm moving right along on my V Maduro. It's been about 30 minutes now. I'm a little over an inch into the cigar, and so far everything's going very well. As you may have been able to tell by the expression on my face, the first couple of puffs just produce an extraordinary amount of spice. It's very heavy, but it's nice. It's pleasant. You know, had those puffs been a little bit larger, I think my eyes might have begun watering a little bit. After you get maybe half a dozen puffs into the cigar, that spice begins to just settle down a little bit, and everything just starts to come together. When you blow the smoke through your sinuses, you still get a good amount of spice. It's very difficult to compare it to any one cigar, and I'm struggling to do that. I'm trying to draw some sort of comparison, but as of right now, this cigar really just stands on its own. I can't think of one single cigar that I would say this flavor profile or this spice profile is going to be similar to such and such a cigar. It's just seems to be something all its own at this point. But the spice is very heavy initially. It backs off a little bit. Finish is nice and creamy. It's very smooth, easy on the palate. You know, you don't get that heavy sort of peppery feeling on the tongue or the back of the throat. It comes off as very smooth, very clean, refreshing even. And the flavors, You know, the one that stands out the most is sort of a woody flavor, although it's not cedar, and it's difficult for me to place. As this woody flavor begins to fade, I'm getting an aftertaste of coffee, and the coffee is nice. It's the closest thing I can compare it to would be a strong cup of black coffee, nothing added, just straight up, you know, strong dark coffee, and it's very nice. It makes for a rich dynamic. It's interesting. It's very enjoyable, all while being smooth. You know, I'm not getting that slight tingle in the back of my throat. I don't feel like I need to scrape my tongue or anything like that. It's just a very fresh or refreshing, clean, enjoyable flavor. Now, the burn line on the cigar is slightly wavy. It's nothing I would consider problematic or anything. Burn line's fairly thin. It's got one or two small blisters in it. Burn rate seems to be on par with a cigar of this size. I don't feel like I'm smoking too slow, too fast. It just feels right. Volume of smoke is great. Get plenty of smoke with each puff. The resistance in the draw is right up my alley. There's a little bit of resistance. It's not too much that I feel like I'm being overworked. Resting smoke is moderate. Room aroma, I really can't smell it at this point. So far everything is going very well with the cigar, and I'm very happy with it. One of the interesting things that I learned about this cigar is that telling this cigar from the Liga Especial is going to be a little difficult. Initially, the idea was to make the bands look a little different and to change up the color, just tweak it just a bit. But if you compare the two side by side, they look identical. So it's kind of amusing that they intentionally changed the color of the band, although for whatever reason, when it came out of production, the bands are they look almost identical, although they may be slightly different. And the Maduro will say Maduro on it instead of Liga Especial, or if you have one of the originals, it will say Ligero Especial. But that's the difference between the two cigars and the size. So that's really all I got to tell you. I don't have a tremendous amount of information on the cigar, just the Cigar Insider information and some of the discussion I had with a representative of Oliva. But as I mentioned, cigars will be out on the 15th, or they'll start shipping on the 15th, and they may be a little difficult to get your hands on. From what I understand, this is a one-time thing for right now. They are planning on doing more in the future. However, their workforce is just overloaded with the entire Oliva line, nubs, and all the house brands that they're doing. So it's difficult for them to put these cigars into production. And another interesting thing about the V is that it's not rolled in the traditional sense where the rollers are being paid per piece or per cigar. They're being paid salary, so the quality is expected to be much higher. They don't have to rush through the cigars, take their time, do it right. They get paid, if they're under quota, over quota, whatever the case may be, they're getting paid salary. So there's no worry of quality problems, or at least I've really never come across a bad V. Earlier on, I had maybe 2 or 3 that had cracked wrappers due to the thin leaf. However, they changed up the leaf to use a thicker leaf. They did not change the blend or anything, just used a thicker leaf, and that seemed to resolve the problem. They also cellophaned them, and my sample came in cellophane, so I would imagine that the 10 count boxes are also going to be cellophaned. So if you walk into a cigar shop, you see a box of V that looks a little smaller and says Maduro on them. You got the right cigar. And we're looking at about $1.25 or something like that, more than the Liga Especial. So you're going to pay a small markup for the limited quantity, and just the fact that you're getting a leaf that's going through more fermentation, more time, and of course time is money. So the more time they spend fermenting the leaf or working with the leaf, the more expensive it's going to be. So I think it's a fair markup for what you're getting. But at any rate, this clip is going a little bit longer than I expected. So sit tight, look at a couple of more pictures. I'll be back, and we'll start on the second third of the Maduro Especial. Well, you guessed it. I'm back with the second third of my Oliva Serie Maduro, and cigar's going very well. I know I'm beginning to sound like a broken record. It just continues to go well. I'm really enjoying the cigar. I'm very happy with the flavors, the finish, the body. It all comes together and makes for a very enjoyable smoke. The body is picked up a little bit over the first third. It's a slow progression. I wouldn't say it's very obvious either. It's just a little fuller in terms of body again. Finish is more creamy than it was initially, and it's still very smooth on the palate. It doesn't feel rough or give me that. It just doesn't give me the impression of a rough cigar. It just seems very well made, very flavorful, very enjoyable, smooth, easy on the palate, well aged. You know, the list just goes on and on. In terms of flavor, you know, the second third just really comes alive. The primary flavor of wood is still there, and I still can't quite place it. It definitely tastes like wood, but it doesn't quite taste like cedar, which is the flavor that a lot of people associate with wood. You know, it's cedar. It just sort of fits the bill, but it's just something different about it. Something all its own. It's not quite cedar, but it's definitely a nice woody flavor. The rich black coffee flavors that I was getting earlier on have faded. I'm not getting much of that at all anymore. What I am getting is just a barrage of leather, black pepper, and what I would consider to be a traditional broadleaf Maduro flavor. And the interesting thing, the thing that makes it so dynamic and complex, is the fact that as soon as one begins to fade, another one starts to come into focus. So you get this this medley of flavors coming in and out that just make for a very enjoyable, complex smoke. Now, the burn line is still a little wavy. It's really not what I would consider to be problematic. Slightly wavy. Ash is very light in color, and if you look at it closely, it looks great. It's nice and light in color. It's got white little speckles all over it from the oils in the wrapper. You can see everything telegraphing through the spent wrapper leaf, and I just find that fascinating. But again, you know, that's one of the things that a lot of people don't really look at or even care to look at. But it's one of the things that strike me as interesting about a cigar, when you can see everything that's going on through the ash. Now, one of the things about this cigar is it's not what I expected, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Traditionally, when I try two cigars, one natural, or in this case, not a Maduro and a Maduro, of the same line with the same branding, I expect them to be fairly similar. You know, just not quite as generic as taking the same cigar and just draping a Maduro wrapper on it and getting just Maduro tones out of it. This cigar really stands on its own. It's got just a very unique flavor profile. It's not quite what I get out of the Liga Especial. I just happened to look up the pre-release review I did of that, and it's interesting to see the differences. Now, you know, of course, if I tell you what it's not what I expected, I should tell you what I did expect out of the cigar. Now, I read a couple of things from the Oliva reps that said the cigar is just a powerhouse. You know, be prepared to sit down. Just loads and loads of power. And, you know, I read that and I didn't quite believe it. You know, I just associated it with the original V. That it was going to be very smooth, full-bodied, rich in flavor. And, you know, not over the top, not extraordinarily full, just right inside the full range, nice solid cigar. And what I'm getting out of this is just what the reps were saying. It's loaded with power, loaded with flavor. It's just something that's a step beyond what the original V is. So it's very interesting, and it caught me off guard when I blew that yesterday. I did the same thing. I blew lots of smoke through my sinuses on that first puff, and it just kind of shocked me that I got so much spice out of the cigar. And I was expecting it to be much more mellow. You know, the spice is pretty intense, and you know, I like it. I like that in a cigar. You know, I really appreciated that, and the fact that it's still there makes me appreciate it even more. Now, if you don't blow the smoke through your sinuses, it's interesting to see how much the flavors sort of tone down. You don't get a lot of the spice, a lot of the pepper, you know, a lot of the dynamic flavors that are going on in the cigar. But as soon as you pass the smoke through your sinuses, it just seems to open up, and the cigar just becomes very complex and just a fantastic smoke nonetheless. So it's just interesting to see how the cigar goes and how different people are going to get different things out of the cigar by smoking it a different way. I blow a lot of smoke through my sinuses on probably every other puff, if not every puff of the cigar. And you know, I'm constantly looking for those different flavors, and they really stand out when you do that. Especially with this cigar, they become very pronounced and very enjoyable. So again, not to sound like a broken record, but cigar is going very well. I'm enjoying it very much. And with that said, I'm going to take another break. You can take a look at a few more pictures of the V Maduro. Listen to a little music courtesy of the PodSafe Music Network, and I'll be back. We'll do the final third, the wrap up, and I'll let you be on your way.
And I've been doing some wishful thinking involving you and me and how we could be. What if I told you I dream about you? Take me back to where I want to be.
Well, welcome back. I am into the final third of my Oliva Serie V Maduro, and I'm about 2 hours into the cigar now. I've probably got another 20 minutes maybe left of it, but it's about time to do the final third and wrap up the cigar. One of the things I noticed about the cigar as I was just taking the 2-hour picture was when I happened to grab a hold of the cigar, directly behind the burn line is getting kind of spongy. Now the cigar doesn't feel hot. I'm not getting a hot sensation on the tongue, the back of the throat. You know, I'm not getting that that sort of roughness or tingling, or you know, a lot of the things that heat bring on. So the cigar is smoking fairly cool, although it is getting a little soft directly behind the burn line. And that's not something I noticed before, but I didn't necessarily grab the cigar behind the burn line. It's beginning to get short, and I just happened to grab a hold of it for the photo and noticed it. Burn line on the cigar is still a little wavy. Again, it's nothing I would consider problematic. The ash color is light. It's still got those nice little white speckles on it that I find interesting. The resting smoke is moderate. I can't smell much in the room. Then again, I am sort of marinating in my own smoke here, so I'm not going to be able to pick up what my wife calls that raw sewage odor from cigars that are very heavy with Ligero. And actually, that was a quote from when I did the Serie V Liga Especial review a while back. And interesting thing is, she says it every time I smoke that cigar, and she says it every once in a while with the El Cobre. So I know it is a big I know that that odor must come from the Ligero, because all these cigars are loaded with it. Now on to the finish. It's smooth, it's creamy, it's not very long, but it's very enjoyable. It's easy on the palate, and it's just loaded with goodness. Flavors are interesting. The cigar develops more and more the further I get into it, which is interesting. Excuse me. The dominant flavor is still that woody flavor from the previous 2/3, but I still can't quite place it. It's not cedar, and I don't know. It's not something I can pinpoint. And what makes it sort of frustrating is the fact that I work in a wood shop, so I smell different types of wood all the time. I know it tastes like wood, but I just can't place it. It's not something that I'm accustomed to, and I think that says a lot for the flavor. I think it's something different, and I think it's something enjoyable. Now, just like the previous third, there's a medley of flavors going on as soon as that woody flavor subsides. I'm getting some sweet spice, black pepper, just glancing at my notes, make sure I get all this right, and coffee and bitter chocolate. And those two flavors are more of a refined sort of traditional Connecticut broadleaf flavor that I mentioned earlier. So everything that's going on is very enjoyable, and I like the dynamic of the cigar and how everything is going about. Back to the ash. When it gets to about 1 inch in length, it takes a firm tap in the ashtray to knock it off. And as soon as the ash comes off in one solid chunk, the end of the cigar has a nice conical shape to it. And what that makes me think is that everything in the cigar is burning properly. So it's not, it doesn't have too much Ligero in it, that it's not burning right. It doesn't have too little, so that it's lacking in flavor. Everything is just in abundance, and it's very nice. Now, this cigar's been in the works for quite some time. I remember back when I did the original V review, the Maduro was actually on the website, and it turns out that originally they were going to produce a V Maduro, but the blend just didn't work with the Maduro wrapper. So it's been a little over a year now, a year and a few months, that they've been trying to make the Maduro work and make it live up to the standards of Oliva. And to be honest with you, I think they nailed it with this cigar. I think that it is everything that the Serie V smokers have been asking for when they say they want a V Maduro. It's got lots of flavor, lots of complexity, and I know if Jose Oliva is watching this, he's probably going to cringe with this next comparison here. But I think that if I had to compare this cigar to anyone else, I think that it has the strength, the power, and just it drives the flavor like the El Cobre does. But I think it has the smoothness, the refinement, the complexity of the original V. So you've got two cigars that I absolutely love, and this sort of comes around in the middle, and I think it plays well, and it draws what it needs to from both cigars, and it just makes a fantastic mixture and meld of flavors, and I really like the cigar. Now, the added price point of about $1.50 or so, $1.75 over the standard V Torpedo, it puts it in the $8 range, and it puts it slightly higher than I traditionally like to pay for cigars. But in this case, I think that extra $1.50 is justified. I think the cigar is worth every bit of the $8 price tag that they're putting on it, and I'm really looking forward to getting a hold of it. The downside of a limited production cigar is that it's just that, it's limited production. So I'm going to have to get out early. I know my shop will have them, I'm positive, and I'm going to have to get a couple when the boxes come in. I'm sure there'll probably be a limit on them, so that everyone in the shop has the opportunity to smoke them, and hopefully everyone else will have that same opportunity. I'm not big on shops limiting numbers of sticks you can purchase, but in some circumstances, when it truly is limited production and you're not going to pay an ultra premium price gouged price, I think it's justified, and I certainly don't mind buying 2 sticks at a time. It just means I go into the cigar shop a couple times during the week, and hopefully they won't be out of them. So At any rate, I really enjoyed the cigar, and I was happy to smoke it, and I'm really looking forward to when they become released on October 15th. I'm not quite sure how many days are going to lapse before they get from Miami to your cigar shop and when they become available, but keep an eye out from the 15th till probably the 17th, 18th. You'll probably start seeing them pop up. So if you happen to come across a cigar, I would definitely recommend picking it up if the cigar sounds like it's up your alley. You know, it really delivers a lot of spice to the sinuses, and if you're the type of person that really likes to blow the smoke through your sinuses, that's what you enjoy. You know, that's part of your cigar ritual, and you like that heavy spice. This is definitely a cigar that you want to pick up. If you're one that doesn't like that spice bomb, you know, you might want to avoid the cigar and go with something else. You know, it doesn't deliver the heavy punch on the palate, on the throat, you know, on the tongue. So if you're the type of smoker that likes, say, Rocky Patel Edge, for instance, I think that's heavy on the tongue, a little irritant to the throat and whatnot. You know, you're not going to get that from this cigar. So the body is something a little different than what you may be accustomed to with something such as the Rocky Patel Edge. You know, it's going to be more along the lines of, as I mentioned, like a cross between El Cobre and the Serie V original. So I think I've babbled on enough. I enjoyed the cigar. Hopefully you enjoyed the review, and it's helped make up your mind whether or not you want to pick one up or not. So until next week, happy smoking. Talk too much, went out.